Hi everyone, Scottiplier PopCultFan here, and today I spent Wednesday on Wednesday. So, yes, I just finished watching Season 2, Part 2 of Wednesday, and, I thought it was an interesting second half. I will say that right now. I think the second half did a lot more for me than the first half did, just mainly because it tied up a lot of loose ends and putting all the pieces together of the mystery, and I really liked that about the second half of the season. And also what they did here, I thought what they did in the finale was something that I didn't think I needed. It was something that I didn't think I needed for a certain limb. That's all I'm gonna say. For a certain limb, I got something that I didn't think that I needed with an extra hand. And it was fascinating and satisfying at the same time. I think the mystery that started at the beginning of the season with the whole zombie thing, I thought was definitely the aspect of the story that I was intrigued with the most, mainly because I kind of knew where it's going, but at the same time, I also didn't know what they were going to do. Like, I didn't know what they were going to do exactly with that zombie subplot. I wasn't sure, and to my surprise, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I was not expecting it with my extra hand. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, and I like, I love the cast. Gwendoline Christie, she came back from season 1. The principal, and I liked kind of what they did with her being sort of like Wednesday's spirit guide in the second half of the season, and I liked how they brought her character back from the first season, and I thought that was interesting there as well. And I think Hunter Doohan as Tyler, he's an interesting villain. I think what they've done with his character throughout these 2 seasons was kind of tragic, very tragic, especially with the fact that, this show, it tackles like certain themes of motherhood that I took notice, and it's kind of mirroring Wednesday's mom and how she's raised Wednesday, and how those two kind of butt heads most of the time, and also how Tyler, his kind of arc throughout these 2 seasons has been kind of, tragic in a sense that you kind of feel bad for him, and he's this kind of this creature who kind of hulks out basically, and what they do with his character is really fascinating. It's one of the storylines I've kind of, has kept me hooked the most compared to some of the other storylines within the show. And one other one that admittedly I didn't care for as much in season 2 was the new principal. What was his name? Dort? Was that his name? And kind of what his end goal was by the end of the season. It wasn't really all that interesting to me, what they were doing with his character, really. But I kind of saw where his character was going as well. I saw where it was going, and it was just not that interesting to me. I will say that the whole, story subplot with Bianca and her mom, and with the new principal of Nevermore, that whole part of the story wasn't really that interesting to me, admittedly. And also it didn't really tie in much to the overall story of the season either, which is another reason why it didn't hook me as much, because it didn't really connect too much to stuff that we really actually cared about. And other than that, though, I also think that I think it would have been better if season 2 was just releases with all 8 episodes together. I think it would have been better that way, because but at the same time, it makes sense with where they ended episode 4. Kind of see that bit of, probably of a bit of a break between episodes 4 and 5, which kind of leads into the second half of the season. And I understand, I think, why they released the season in parts. but at the same time, I feel like it would have been better if they just released it as a whole instead of 4 episodes like last month and 4 episodes this month. But overall, though, I really enjoyed this season. I like what I've mentioned before, that they have incorporated more of the Addams Family characters, and also like kind of what I was saying about Wednesday's brother, and how he has a bit of an arc this season as well that was definitely much more involved compared to the first season. That's all I'm gonna say, but I thought what they did there was pretty good. And also I like how throughout these 2 seasons that we've gotten so far, we have gone like an actual arc for Thing, the hand, and they're okay. I will talk a little bit about the season finale, but only in a way that really did make me think of Evil Dead. There's an element of humor in this show, dark humor, that I do enjoy, and there is this dark humor moment in the season finale that it was straight up Evil Dead. It was straight up Evil Dead. If you're a fan of like the old Evil Dead films with Ash Williams, there is a scene in the season finale that will make you think of Army of Darkness. I kid you not. That was it got a massive nostalgic chuckle out of me, because as someone who loves those older Evil Dead films, like oh my goodness, that was oh my god, which kind of ties into the whole zombie subplot. As I was saying, it was interesting, and that's all I'm gonna say. That is all I'm gonna say. But overall, pretty good season. I like Nevermore Academy. It really is a lot like Hogwarts, while at the same time, all the students and even the crew, or the teachers, also have abilities. The principal has an ability, and I think this is a show that a lot of people will gravitate towards, because it does a lot that kind of harkens to like kind of how it was back in the day watching the Harry Potter films, as I've mentioned before, as well as the X-Men films. There's a lot there in regards to a lot of the elements that really does like feel satisfying, especially for me. And one other aspect of this show that I also really appreciate is the theming of friendship, especially between Enid and Wednesday. I like the arc that Enid and Wednesday go on throughout this season in particular, in which you really do gravitate towards the way they are as friends, even though Wednesday Addams, what kind of character she is, but at the same time there is a certain level of feeling deep down inside of Wednesday in which she does care about Enid. She does, deep down, even if she doesn't want to emote those emotions. You do see that, and I think that's what makes Wednesday's character so fascinating. And when you get to the season finale with Enid's character and what she's dealing with throughout this season, it's also tragic. That's all I'm gonna say. That and it hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting after I watched the season finale, which made me think of another project. And there's something to be said about friendship. It really is. I love my best friend Sean, so there's an element of the friendship between Wednesday and Enid that I really latch on to. That's very relatable. And overall, great cast, great cinematography, great setting, and I love this show. It's been really great so far. And if I had to give Wednesday season 2 a grade, I would definitely give it, I think, I'd say about an A-. I think that'd be my grade for Wednesday season 2 as a whole. It's been really good so far, and I do think I like it a little bit more than the first season, mainly because it does go a little bit darker with its story, which I also appreciate. Even though it does still feel very much like a show that even preteens will really enjoy. It does go a little bit darker with its story and mystery, which I also really like. So A- for Wednesday season 2. It's something that I'm sure a lot of people will really enjoy. And for those of you that are like me, that isn't familiar with the Wednesday, or that isn't familiar with the Addams Family, just going to the show blind, you'll enjoy it more. If you're like someone like me who has not seen the previous films or like shows or whatever that Addams Family have been featured in heavily before, going into the show blind, I think you'd enjoy it more. Because I don't know what the iteration differences are between films and shows. I don't. And if things' backstory is different in other films or whatever, I don't know. I don't know what things' backstory is like in previous installments of this franchise. I don't know. But it was a great season, and I loved it. So thank you guys so much for watching. One last thing I want to mention before I end this off. I am going to be away for a couple days. Well, actually, most of the weekend this weekend, because I'm going to the Disney parks in Anaheim with my family, and with my friend Sean too, actually. So I'm sure I'll post maybe photos of my trip while I'm in the Disney parks, especially Disneyland and California Park. So I'll probably share photos with you all during the trip, but I won't be able to make any videos while I'm in Anaheim. So that should do it for this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you all next time.